Okay, class, let's go over this test review. Okay, so for each one of these questions, what I'd like for you to do is, 1, write the formula, plug in the information, and put the answer with its correct label. And we are going to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so this first one, number 1, we have a cylinder. So our formula is volume is equal to pi r squared h. We know our generic formula for any prism or cylinder is volume is equal to capital B H, where the capital B in this case is our circle. Okay? So let's plug in our necessary information. Volume is equal to 3.14 times. Well, in this particular problem, I gave you a diameter, but we need a radius. So that means we need to cut this 9 in half. And half of 9 is 4.5. So 4.5 squared, which means 4.5 times 4.5 times the distance between the two bases, or the two circles in this case, which is 12.2. So if we multiply these together, we end up with an answer of 775.737. Now, if this is rounded to the nearest tenth, this 3 doesn't have enough power to do anything to the 7, so it's just 775.7 centimeters cubed. Now for number 2, this is a rectangular prism. So our formula is volume is equal to length times width times height. And it really doesn't matter which order you put the 3 numbers as long as you use the 3 dimensions. So volume is equal to 17.6 times 23.4 times 8.1. When you multiply these together, you end up with 3,335.904. Again, the 0 doesn't do anything to the 9, so it's just 3,335.9 meters cubed. Okay. Question number 3. Now, in question number 3, it's a triangular prism. We need to remember that the base is not always what it's sitting on. In this particular shape, the base is actually the triangles. We need to remember that the triangles are the parallel congruent pieces of this particular prism. And in a triangle, we need its base and its height. And the base and height are always touched by a right angle. So in this particular problem, we have volume is equal to the area of the base, which is a triangle, so that's base times height divided by 2, times the distance between the two triangles, which in this problem is the 15. So volume is equal to 8 times 6.9 divided by 2 times the distance between the two triangles, which is 15. We multiply that together, and we get a nice answer of 414 feet cubed. Now, number 4, this is our first one where we have a pyramid. So we start off with the generic formula of volume is equal to 1/3 capital BH. So that means we're going to have to find the volume of the prism and then take 1/3 of it. So in this particular case, we know that this is a rectangular pyramid. So it's going to be 1/3 length times width times height. Okay, so volume is equal to 1/3, 8 times 8 times, and this time the height that we want is the one that goes from the center all the way to the highest point. Okay, this other height is just extra information. It is called a slant height, and we need it for when we're doing surface area. Okay, so we need the height of 9.2. So when we multiply this together, 8 times 8 times 9.2 divided by 3, we end up with 196.26 with a bar. Well, this 6 is big enough to do something to this 2, so our answer becomes 196.3 inches cubed. Number 5. This one is a cone. So again, we have the 1/3 formula. So specifically, it's going to be volume is equal to 1/3 area of the base. In this case, it is a circle. So pi r squared h. So volume is 1/3 times 3.14. But this time I did give you the radius. So 6.3 squared times, and again, I need the height that comes from the center point, which is 14. So volume is equal to 581.5908. Now this 9, it is big enough to bump the 5, so this becomes 581.6 inches cubed. Now on number 6, we have a triangular prism. But if you'll notice the information that's given here, it has 45 inches squared and an arrow pointing to the center of this base. Well, that is the area of the base. So in this particular problem, we're going to use the generic formula for a prism because that's the information that's been given. So volume is equal to 45 times 30. Multiply that together and we end up with 1,350 inches cubed. Okay. Now we have kind of an application of volume. What's the volume of a Dr. Pepper can? Okay, well, the Dr. Pepper can is just a cylinder, so it still has the same exact formula for a cylinder. So volume is equal to pi r squared h. So volume is equal to 3.14 times, well, again, I gave you a diameter, so we have to find the radius. Well, half of 6.5 is 3.25. So 3.25 squared times the height of the figure, which is 12. You multiply those together and you end up with 397.995. Now this one has some unique rounding rules. Because this 9 right here, it's going to bump this 9 to a 10. So that would bump this to a 0, which means we carry the 1 here, which gives us an 8, 9, and 3. So that gives us 398.0. And yes, we typically leave the 0.0 to show that this was a rounded answer and not exactly 398 in centimeters cubed. Now on number 9, I gave you a volume and asked you to find the missing part. So this is where we have to use a little algebra and work backwards. So we plug in our formula, where our formula is volume is equal to, with a rectangular prism, length times width times height. We plug in the information that we know. Well, we know volume is 3,018.24. We know a length is 26.2. We know a width is 12, and I'm looking for x. Well, what I've taught is anything that you can put together, put it together. Okay, so we take the 26.2 and the 12, we put that together, and that makes 314.4 x. That's equal to 3,018.24. So to solve for x, I divide both sides by 314.4, and you end up with x equaling 9.6. So x is equal to 9.6 millimeters, and it is just single millimeters because it is a single dimension. Okay. And that sets us up for number 11. Number 11 is the most fun question on this test review, and it's of a cylinder. And I gave you volume and asked you to find the diameter. Okay. So we start by writing the formula for that of a cylinder. Volume is equal to pi r squared h. We plug in the information that we know. I know volume is 9,420. I know pi is 3.14. I don't know the radius, so I'm going to leave that as radius squared, but I do know my height is 30. Again, what I've taught is put things together that can go together that's on one side. So we end up with 9,420 is equal to 3.14 times 30 gives us 94.2 r squared. So we divide both sides by 94.2. We end up with r squared equaling 100. Well, r squared and d are not the same thing. R squared is r times r. So really what I'm looking for is what number can I multiply by itself to give me 100? And we know that that's 10. So what I'm really doing is taking the square root of r squared to find r. and r is equal to 10. So if the radius is equal to 10, what is my diameter? Well, if the radius is 10, that means the diameter has to be 20. So 20 feet. And then the last question is triangular prism. So volume is equal to base times height divided by 2 times height. So volume is equal to 10 times 9 divided by 2 times 18. Well, 10 times 9 gives me 90. Divided by 2 is 45. Times 18 gives us 810 feet cubed. And that's how you work each of the questions on the test review.